this stage. Look at this place. This is the coolest stage I've been at by far.
It's important to be different. In a space like this, if you're different, you win, right? So it's great that you have that working in your favor. It's great you're capturing this, you can show it to the people, so next year you can have more people coming.
Gracias, everybody. It's been such an incredible first day. I'm so glad. Actually, all of us organized are so glad to have such a success, such a turnout. It's so incredible. Day one of the Tulum Crypto Fest. So everybody, give yourself a nice round of applause. It's been such a beautiful day. Closer. Oh, closer. I'm very excited to be announcing our next guest, our keynote speaker, Pablo Gonzalez, who's actually flown in just for this, for the Tulum Crypto Fest. Pablo is a fascinating, interesting person, one of the most inspiring people that you're going to meet, so we're so excited to have him here. I'm going to give you a quick introduction on what who Pablo is. He's the co-founder and chief design officer of Bitso, the largest Latin American exchange, which was founded in Mexico. It operates in Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, and El Salvador, has over 5 million customers, over 600 employees, solving real use cases for Mexican people with a mission to make crypto useful. Before he ventured into the fintech and crypto space, Pablo was actually a film designer by trade. He used to direct commercials and design sci-fi interfaces for Hollywood films. So he's comes from a very diverse background, and he's been awarded the Endeavor Entrepreneur of the Year of 2021, and he's the third unicorn in Mexico's history. So he's a super inspiring, very knowledgeable and fascinating person. Outside of his professional accolades, Pablo is also the father of a young, energetic perrito called Palapa, and he's famous for showing up to events unannounced, wearing his poncho. So we're very excited to have him today. He's not in his poncho, but he's a super down-to-earth guy. And presenting him with a fireside chat, we have Jorge Gutierrez, I hope I pronounced that right, head of fintech of AWS startups in LATAM. He'll be facilitating the conversation to take a deeper dive on Pablo's journey and the opportunities that are present in LATAM. So super excited to be presenting these two guys to close up the final talks for the day. So Pablo and Jorge, round of applause for you guys. The stage is yours.
Wow, what an amazing setup. Thank you to all the organizers. The work that you've put into this event and bring the community this way, it's amazing, as well as the amazing speakers that you've put together. So thank you very much for the invitation. Super pleased to be here with Pablo. I've had the chance to meet him when he was starting Bitso, so it's going to be hopefully a good conversation that you can take something out of. So welcome, Pablo. I don't know if you want to add something about your amazing profile or about Bitso.
No. Jorge and I go way back, so it's gonna be fun, and it's completely unplanned. So hopefully there's no tough questions. I have an announcement. Unfortunately, I don't know if you know, but COVID's still a thing, and apparently I got COVID. I found out yesterday. So that's why I've been keeping my distance. The organizers were very responsible to make sure that I get in through the ocean and everything. But I want to make sure I come here, and just to let you know, I don't want to spread it around. It's a bit of a shame. I wish I was there with you later tonight partying, hopefully tomorrow. I might not have it, and then we can go to the cenote on Sunday.
So double thanks for being here then,
Fine.
with all the measures that the organizers have taken. So thank you very much, Pablo. So maybe I want to start with some history. Because you were living in Canada before starting Bitso, but somehow you decided to jump from media, and video games and design to crypto and come back to Mexico. What the heck happened in your head? What did you decide to jump to crypto, and why Latin America?
That's a very broad question.
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, I always like the power of storytelling. I think that a good story can shape the world, right? Like can change the course of humanity. A good story. So for me, filmmaking was a way to tell stories, to try to influence, probably like hopefully help shape the world in a positive way. And I remember by mistake I was working on a film called Ender's Game. That's with Harrison Ford, and I don't know. It's based on a cult book, sci-fi film, and I was doing my design research. I basically designed the interfaces, and part of the research led me to, like how do computers agree with each other, right? Like what's a way for computers to agree with each other? And based on that, I ran by complete luck with a Bitcoin white paper in 2011. And I thought it was interesting. I didn't understand it that much, but I was just completely fascinated by this idea of peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Can you hear me? Sorry, I hear so louder, but maybe the sound guys can. Perfect. Thank you. Sorry. I am not running out of breath. It's just the sound needs to go up a bit. But anyways, so basically I was working on this, and I quickly got really interested on Bitcoin, and then I went down the rabbit hole back in the day, and I remember using Bitcoin for the first time in 2012, and there's a quote that I love that's any sufficiently advanced technology, it's indistinguishable from magic. And for me, using Bitcoin for the first time, it was like magic, right? And right there, I knew that this was going to be important for the world in some way, and that I needed to be involved. That it was now or never, but maybe it was that my involvement maybe was a stronger way to influence things than what I was doing with storytelling, and so that's kind of where we started, and I started doing some projects around Bitcoin and crypto, well, Bitcoin at the time, in Canada, and then looking back at Latin America, like moving from Mexico, living abroad for many years, it was very clear that a lot of the real opportunities for this technology were in developing countries, and countries like Mexico. I mean, we can talk more about that, but that's what we started, right? Like it was important to promote the technology, to give access to the technology, and I felt a bit lucky to find out about that
An early
early on.
stage. Cool. Well, thank you for getting involved then. So we want to talk about the LATAM opportunity, right? Last year for LATAM was a historic record in terms of investment. For the first year, we got more than 20 billion of investment in the region, which was historic, more than the last 10 years. Between 40 to 50% of that investment went to fintech, and obviously a lot of that is going to crypto. So, taking your history as an example, why did it take LATAM so long to start booming, and what's happening today from your perspective, using your experience with Bitso?
Yeah, I remember when we started in 2014. Basically, what we wanted to do was just to promote Bitcoin, to connect the traditional banking system with Bitcoin and give access to people to the technology and its use cases. We did not know how to raise money. We did not know anything that today exists in LATAM, right? So when you look at 2014, the amount of funds that existed in LATAM were almost none, basically. There was a couple funds, CASEC, I mean, you guys were
Ignia.
starting
Yeah.
to invest at the time, Ignia, but there was no local funds, basically. There was a couple angel investors, and you had to sell them not only on a startup and fintech and what is fintech, but
What?
we had to sell them about crypto, right? In 2014.
I remember our conversations with banks,
Yes.
trying to explain Bitcoin. Really funny now.
It was pretty funny now that I think about it. Like meetings at the central bank in 2014, talking about this. But anyways, like looking at Latin America, there was basically no infrastructure for startups. It not only applies to capital and funds, it applies also to, are there lawyers that understand this? That understand how to make option packages and how to do a safe for fundraising. Like all the legal firms, they were great on traditional type of mom and pop businesses, but not great in startups. When you think about Silicon Valley, they've been doing that for decades, right? So all the money that was coming into the region was kind of out of luck. Like we were lucky enough to find investors outside that were crypto investors that understood the business and were, like kind of saw a Latin American opportunity. But you need to remember that also Latin America was scary for people. You're a big fund in the U.S. What am I going to invest in a company in Mexico? I don't understand the corporate, the corporate structure. Am I going to get screwed with my investment?
Yeah.
And so it took a while to develop, and we've seen a boom now, where I think Brazil's led the charge in a big way. When I look at Brazil, it's like they're probably ahead of Mexico for 3 to 5 years in terms of technology startups, but it's the rest of the regions caught up very quickly.
Yeah, which is another interesting fact about Latin America, because sometimes when we talk about Latin America, people think it's one country, and they treat it as one country. But Latin America has more than 20 countries. And you just mentioned how Brazil is moving forward. Do you think that's because of the regulation or the approach of the regulator? Or how are you seeing the regulation boost crypto in the region or stop it?
Well, no, the reason why Brazil's ahead, in my opinion, is because it's just a massive market. It's one of the biggest markets in the world. So whenever there's a company that wants to expand internationally, or they're like, Brazil, it's very juicy for an Uber or for, it's just a very large economy. So, yeah, I think regulation affects how fast the startups can move. But I don't think, like, for example, when we launched, there was no regulation.
At all.
I thought I was going to go to jail. I went to central bank and they told me that what I was doing was illegal, and that creating coins, it's penalized and it's 10 years in prison, and I should stop doing what I'm doing. And then I went and got legal opinions, and but it took a while, right, to get there. And so yeah, maybe regulation scared away a lot of innovation, but I think that innovation will always move faster than regulation. And at the end of the day, look, if you're giving value to people, if they're using a product that's better than what's, that's innovative, but it's better. If you're doing things in a way that's more transparent or more responsible or more I think you can talk to regulators or human beings and hopefully get them to understand the positive impact this can have in an economy, in a society, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, a lot of the questions that we get when we see this record investments from last year is this a bubble, right? And then some of the answers is no, because it's a massive market, double the size of the US. There's market inefficiencies and there's problems being solved. There's market efficiencies that startups can take advantage of, like talent or cheap talent, stuff like that. What do you think in terms of this question? Is it a bubble? I mean, you guys have reached more than 5 million customers now. What do you see in the near future to answer this question?
Like in terms of traditional markets or crypto?
Crypto.
Okay, so, well, what's interesting, for example, about places like LATAM, right? There's a lot of, when there's problems to fix, it's great. Because a lot of people get creative, they get, you have a lot of creativity when there's issues to solve. So it's something that always attracted me of entrepreneurs in Latin America, right? They tend to be very creative to solve these problems. And when you think about crypto specifically, is it a bubble? Yeah, it's a bubble right now. I mean, I think it was, but it's been a bubble. Like there's been many bubbles throughout crypto's lifetime. I started in crypto in 2011, roughly, and I've seen 5 crashes, I think, and my favorite time right now, like looking at this week, I'm loving it. I mean, I know a lot of people like lost money and it's very serious, but I love bear markets because these are the markets where we get to build. These are the markets where there's a lot of noise in crypto because it's technological, it's hard to understand sometimes. There's a lot of money now in crypto, so you get to see a lot of noise. But right now, it's when a lot of the noise comes out, right? Like when when the sea level comes down, you see who's swimming naked, right? And it's a little bit what happens right now with this time. Like the fact that you're here, and I encourage everyone to stay true to crypto in the future, because there's value being creative, and there's a lot of value. And the first time, like for example, when I saw somebody receiving a remittance from Sacramento, California, to Mexico, and not understanding how the blockchain works, how confirmations work, they just knew that they got more money, that it was cheaper, that it was faster, more transparent. That is clear that there's value. And like that, there's 1,000 examples. Yeah. And every day there's more. So crypto's not going anywhere. And probably one of the most important, I don't know who's into trading here, day trading, who's been watching the markets this week. They're tough.
Everything's going down.
Yeah, but you're like, okay, Bitcoin came down 30%, and then last week it went up 10% today. You watch the week, and it's noise. But when you think about these technologies, where the real value proposition is during a course of 5 years, that's when it starts to make sense. So my approach to crypto has always been like that. And whenever there's a bull market and there's a ton of coins and tokens and ICOs and DAOs, and it's very difficult to really understand where the real value is. And there's a lot of real value that gets created. But one of the most interesting parts is like some of the biggest, most relevant projects in crypto have gotten started during bear markets. And these are the projects that define,
Totally.
like for example, like in terms of on-ramps, like Coinbase started in 2012 in a bear market. And that's the one that's kind of defined a lot of the, like centralized exchanges and things. You look at Ethereum. Ethereum started in a bear market. We started in a bear market as well. And it was great because we got to learn before things got crazy, right? Even things like that define DeFi, like Uniswap. Uniswap started in 2018 in a bear market. And even, like a bunch of these projects have been built thinking about the long term and not necessarily thinking about, well, there's an opportunity here, there's money, we're going to build something, right? So for me, the part that's always motivated me, it's this is a revolution. This is fuck the man. This is power to the people. and this is for the long run. So I'm here to stay, right?
Cool. Good to hear the positive part of the crash today, right? So round of applause there. Another thing that I think it's a use case to what you're saying, and it's pretty unique to Latin America as well, is use cases like Argentina. What's happening in Argentina? You know, when you go to Argentina and talk to people, everybody has used crypto. It's very common now because they've been using it for years, because their economy, you know, it's giving more ups and downs than crypto. So I don't know, how do you see that market, and how's that evolving compared to other countries like Mexico, maybe?
Yeah, so one of the most wonderful things about the Bitso journey is to get to listen to people's stories about how they use crypto, right? As I said, when we started in Mexico, it was very focused on international payments, remittances, but then we started learning about, you know, people don't have credit cards, so they started using us to buy things online, and just the idea of enabling people was really exciting, to do something that they could not do before. And then as we open other markets, like we go to Argentina and we said, well, it's Latin America, it should be kind of similar to Mexico. And it was not. So in Argentina, they change the rules like every week.
Yeah.
They tend to put these circulares, and they're like, they come into place on Monday, and you need to change something, how you operate, in a couple of days, right? And then you start understanding the market dynamics, and it's fascinating because you have a country where for the past 20 years or so, their currency has been losing value constantly.
Inflation's crazy.
Like
yeah.
inflation's crazy. Sometimes, like if you have money today, next week you'll have a lot less money, right? So what people are used to in Argentina. So in Argentina, 75% of the bank accounts get emptied during payroll day. People go to the ATM, take out cash, pay whatever they can, like rent, services, and then they go call their local dealer of dollars. They buy dollars, they go back to the bank and put the dollars in cash in a bank account, right?
Yeah.
So it's a very different market. And people, when you talk to people, that's survival. They're used to living like that, and they say it's fun. I don't think it's fun to live like that. But what's been great about Bitso, like a lot of our growth that's come from Argentina, has been on people buying stablecoins, buying dollars. They get their payroll in Bitso, they convert it to dollars or to Bitcoin, and they don't need to worry about it, right? And they get to create some yield on it, but just protecting people's life savings, it's a problem that a lot of times, like from a first world country, you don't think it can be a reality, right?
Exactly.
And it is.
Yeah, so that's another cool stuff about the LATAM opportunity, because you guys are solving real problems and you're taking crypto to the next level, to the next layer. So that's pretty amazing. What do you think? So there's, you also mentioned talent. You know, we have statistics on how, 5 years ago, talent would go to the US or to other countries and they wouldn't come back. They would just go to, a big corporate job. And now we see a lot of talent coming back. What else? What else is LATAM missing to continue this wave, to continue growing like crazy, apart from the cool stuff that we've seen? On your perspective, you're expanding to different countries. What else do you think it's missing in LATAM? I know it's a tough one maybe, but
Yeah.
just to hear your thoughts.
I mean, talent was a problem because a lot of the good talent was abroad. And then it was very difficult also, remember when I said that the infrastructure was not in place? So try to sell people on an option plan for your company back in the day. They're like, no, that's funny money, that's never gonna happen, that's a way for you to pay me less. And it's like, no, I want you to capture future upside. Now that there's some success cases, some people are starting to understand things like option plans, right? And
now they only want that.
Sorry?
Now they only want that.
Correct.
They don't want the traditional salary.
Yeah, and now that there's a lot of venture capital, like, and that the world's moving to a remote work culture, so we have people from, I think it's almost 40 countries now at Bitso. And so we pay on a global basis. We don't go and say, oh, because you live in Mexico, this is the salary, and we start to standardize to the world. And as more venture capital money has flown into LATAM, it's made a lot of these companies competitive in terms of talent. But what I would say is, I think still a lot of, like the legal structure is not there for these companies to thrive. Like, for example, try making your holding in Mexico.
Crazy.
Good luck with that. And like the entire fiscal, like tax structures, it's just not meant for that, right? It's probably one of the worst ideas you can have if you want to have a really big company, is to have your holding here. There's things like, for example, in Mexico, there's a failed stock market.
IPOs.
If you IPO in the US, don't IPO in Mexico.
Okay.
In Brazil, it's a little bit more successful, but other than that,
Still
it's kind of dead, the stock market. So maybe crypto can enable like these secondary markets where people can participate in companies. And I'm very bullish on that case, to give liquidity to successful companies through crypto. But that infrastructure is not there, right? So like, there's no advantage of going and listing on the Mexican stock exchange, to be honest.
Okay. Then you guys started as an exchange, but you quickly are becoming a crypto bank. So now you have basically banking services. What's the next innovation using crypto? What do you see next? How do you see the next 5 years?
So the problem we've been trying to solve, it's this connection with the real world and crypto, right? How do we onboard people? How do we educate and tell people that this exists? How do we engage with regulators? I mean, it's been a very difficult challenge, but like I would love to live in crypto land forever, but we've taken on the challenge of connecting these two worlds, right? So that's been the focus, like, and still the focus. Still, I think that's still a problem that needs solving and needs improving. There's still a lot of friction, and but that being said, you know, as more of our customers become more savvy with the technology, they can take advantages of other things that crypto can offer them. Our mission is to make crypto useful, and there's so many awesome use cases, right? And I think the ultimate, like the way that I see the ultimate, it's, I think eventually we will all live in crypto, and this connection won't be necessary, hopefully. And something that I tend to tell the team, and it's that if we're successful, we're gonna be unnecessary the way we exist.
Okay.
As a custodian, as a centralized exchange, and hopefully we'll get to a point where maybe we change our model to become an interface, right, on using your money in a different way. But this is like
Way ahead,
right? I think there's still a need of giving insured custodianship. You know, like there's like it's not to be paternalistic about our products, but it's how do we protect early users. I think is very important. But I'm hoping that eventually we will all be
there.
Like we won't be using shitcoin Mexican pesos and things like that.
One last question before we go to the really cool questions that will come from this side. You know, in terms of stakeholders, I remember, I don't know, conversations 5 years ago with Visa, MasterCard. You know, they would see crypto as a threat. And now, on this point that you touch on how we can make crypto more close and connected to the world, I see them growing like crazy in partnership with crypto. They are enabling cards so that crypto becomes a thing that you can use on the coffee shop. How do you see these stakeholders changing their mind? Is it real? Are they empowering? How do you see the stakeholders playing the game of the future?
That's a very interesting question. Quick announcement, we're launching a card. You can join the wait list, get your card, use crypto, spend it. Thank you. But no, it's very interesting because a lot of these stakeholders, we've been trying to convince for years, and other crypto companies, they've been evangelizing. And they're very important because they hold a lot of the infrastructure or what people are used to using. Like more people are used to paying with Apple Pay in Europe and all these things, right? So preaching these things with crypto become increasingly important. And I think that it's come to a point where we're at the point right now. I mean, we were at the point like 3 or 4 years ago where it was like no turning back already. But they're all already like, they see it as it's a Kodak moment, right? If they don't join in, they're gonna get left behind. And now it's very apparent, right? Whereas 3, 4 years ago, it wasn't as apparent. And I remember very good the conversations early on, getting shut down everywhere, and then getting callbacks today. And it's one of the most rewarding things in the world. So if there's people that don't believe that this is the future, just keep trying, and maybe in 4 or 5 years, you'll have
They'll come back.
They'll come back, and it will feel really nice.
Cool. Yeah, my prediction is that with the card, you guys are gonna grow like crazy. So we'll see. Do you guys want to make some questions? I think these are gonna be the cool questions. So, because you guys are crypto users. There's some over there. I don't know if there's a mic, or if you want to come, maybe.
Yeah, I can hear. Yeah. Sure. So the questions around XRP, and just a bit of context. Ripple's one of the earliest companies in the space. In 2012 they started, and they created a lot of really cool technologies. Like some of the first smart contracts were code use on the Ripple network. They created this idea of IOUs, which probably were one of the first stable coins that we saw as an industry. The Ripple, what was it? I forgot, but like the first decentralized exchange was basically the Ripple network. But they also done very things not in a great way. So they distributed their coin in a way where they kept a lot of it. It's basically there's always been a talk, is it a security for the company or not? So there was a big case where the SEC determined that XRP is security, and they got fined, which is nice. Like, it's good for Ripple probably because they get to put that argument aside and move on. The reality is that there is really good technology for fast, instant payments, where they got to focus. But the problem is that as a company, they got to shift focus, and they were just too early, in my opinion. They had awesome talent. A lot of the talent that started is not there yet. For example, one of our first investors is one of the creators of Ripple, Arthur Brito. And he's just an awesome guy. He's a genius. But this is a very different time in crypto. This is 2013, right? Like, there was no knowledge of what's a fair distribution of a token, right? And if I own XRP, I don't believe on the XRP as an investment, but I believe on the technology, and we're good partners with them, and we're processing a lot of cross-border payment volume with them. Maybe I'll buy just to, I don't know, but just full disclosure, I think it's interesting. I just don't think that the asset itself, it's a good asset. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but we're in Tulum and everything. It's very transparent and open.
There's some other questions there, and then we'll come here.
Yeah, go for it.
So is it a debit or credit card? And what will users be able to do with this card?
Yeah, so about the card, it's a debit card. Basically, you spend the assets we have in Bitso. We start with pesos because it's where we have most users in Mexico, and you get Bitcoin cashbacks. So every time you spend, you get some satoshis back. Well, the roadmap is that we add you can spend any asset, and the roadmap includes collateralized like credit as well. But you know, we gotta start somewhere. We actually were gonna do the debit card some time ago, but because the infrastructure wasn't there and some of the providers wouldn't allow us to give the UX we wanted, we decided to put it on hold. But now I think it's pretty. I'm really excited.
It's coming.
It's coming. It's coming.
There's a waiting list, so.
So the.
And there was another question here.
Coinbase tiene como un disclaimer de que si Bitcoin llega a un cierto precio por debajo, se declara en bancarrota, ¿no? O algo así. Si Bitso tiene algo pensado similar con eso. Y otra pregunta con respecto a la relación con El Salvador. ¿Cómo ha sido ese trato, esa parte, ¿no? Esa experiencia que nos compartas?
Of course, sí, por supuesto. So there was two questions. There was one that's very recently where Coinbase has a disclaimer that if Bitcoin, I mean, I don't know who's familiar with what happened with Terra this week. Systemic risk where pressure on a market created a domino effect on this algorithmic stablecoin, and the whole thing collapsed. And there was this talk this week. I don't know exactly that if Bitcoin goes below some price, Coinbase could go in bankruptcy. I don't understand. We don't have that risk. Basically, we're a market. We're 100% solvent from. Like if somebody has a Bitcoin, we have a Bitcoin in our balance. We don't mess around with that. That's why we were also regulated to prove that transparency. So I don't know what's that. Like look, Bitcoin can be 10 pesos, and I could still use it to send a payment to Australia, or it could be $1 million, and I can still use it to send a payment to Australia. So that's what we care about, right? Like making crypto useful, and we're independent on the price. The second question was El Salvador. So how's been our experience? And the experience has been awesome. I mean, it's tough with the market, but basically when we heard about El Salvador, we looked at expanding into El Salvador a few years ago out of full transparency, and the market was just too small. Like it didn't make business sense for us. And when we heard the announcement, we honestly did not know this was coming. This started with a community in El Sonte that started using Bitcoin in the community, and it started going from the ground up. And then a very forward-thinking president had the guts to make it happen and progress their country into the future, right? Decades into the future. So when we saw it, we're like, okay, it's very close to Mexico. We've been dealing with this for a while. I think we can help, right? So I remember listening to the Twitter Spaces with the president speaking, and after that hung up, got on a plane, I think the next day to El Salvador, and we just showed up like, how can we help, right? So we started working with a lot of the regulatory framework, where we had experience looking at different legislations. We started working with the government for liquidity, so whenever the government buys the dip, like Bukele buys the dip, he buys it with us. So we help with a lot of that infrastructure in a way, with exchanging dollars to bitcoins in a way that's frictionless and that's easy. and it's been great. I mean, I like every time I go to El Salvador, I see a lot of progress in financial education. In it's very exciting, and I think it's gonna be the Singapore of Latin America, to be honest. Even though there's critiques today this week that it might default because of the Bitcoin price, I don't think that's true. I do believe that like it's something that's it's done in a few months what decades of traditional banking hasn't been able to do in El Salvador.
Cool. Thanks. Really cool experience there. We have a question here. Good, it's close so
Thank
we can
you.
hear. There you go.
All right. How do you see the metaverse? What's your take on this metaverse happening?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm a bit of a Bitcoin maxi. Yeah, just being. That being said, I do love the idea of metaverse. Like early on, I think that what we're looking for as humans, it's unique experiences, right? Like look at this stage, look at this place. This is the coolest stage I've been at by far, I think. But, but anyways, we're in search of unique experiences. We're constantly searching for these things, and I do believe that a virtual experience or a non-physical experience can give uniqueness and can be special, right? For you, like whatever special means to you, that you can have special experiences in a virtual world or whatever that means. So I don't believe that I do believe that crypto creates a very unique possibility to enhance those experiences, right? With a sense of ownership, whether it's economic, right, where you get to work on the metaverse, and that's how you monetize, things like that, right? Like I met people, like talking about the use cases, I met people that, this Argentine couple that they lost their job with COVID, and they had no money. Their son started playing Axie Infinity, and then started making money, and they paid for basically was keeping the household during COVID, right? Why not? So I do believe that intersection to be very interesting, and based on my background as well on like 3D, like CGI, and I find it interesting. I just think that.
How do you see it going back and forth? How do you see it going back and forth? Like, when will you be in the metaverse? When will you be here? Like, how do you see that? Why will you come back? Why will you go there?
I don't know. Like, I mean, just personally, right? I don't think there's anything that can replace right now this nature. Like that is a real luxury. That is a real, like being here with this beautiful ocean, with the breeze, like that is what we have today, right? Like, and taking care of it, it's incredibly important. It's one of the most important things we can do as humans. But I do believe as well that we can create experiences that get close to that in the metaverse, and I don't know how you're gonna switch between them, but it might be cooler. I don't know. Hopefully, but today, like, we need to take care of this.
Thank you. Can you make an intro to the Argentinian couple? Because I have 3 kids, so they might help me with the household as well. There was another question over there.
Hola. I'm wondering if you feel, as Bitso company, you have any responsibility of sharing to these 5 million people, like what happened during this week, or what is the mission that you have to explain in simple, like to 5 million people, what's going on? Is any educational pilot for you?
This is a great question, right? So what happened this week, and a lot of us probably here, we lost a lot of money. Hopefully, money that's doesn't,
Was one the same way.
that's not horrible, right? Like it's not life wrecking. But a lot of people did lose money. That's like especially people with invested in Luna, right? And it's very important always to remind people that understand before investing in these assets. It's still experimental. We're doing something that in the history of the planet, there's never been anything like this, right? So, like invest what you're willing to lose in a way. Like when I go and say, oh, I'm a bit of a Bitcoin maxi, it's because of this, right? It's because I'm pretty sure that's not gonna go anywhere. That's an Ethereum and a few things. But, when people get greedy, that's a problem, right? And when they start to like, oh, Doge and blah, and it's gonna 100x, and I wanna ape onto this, on these shit coins, and they're gonna grow, and you need to understand then that you're playing the casino, right? So as Bitso, we have a big responsibility on telling our users that. So what we did early on is that we added very few coins. And then that was a wrong approach because they're like, well, you're being like paternalistic, like let the market decide, it goes against crypto. And we're like, all right, we'll add a bunch of things and let the users decide, but then we need to help with education, right? And it's tricky, to be honest. And so one of the things we do is we are fully transparent with our customers. We don't we don't tell you like you should invest on this or this is gonna double, like never, right? That's why also regulation. We just give access, right? And try to give as much information as possible. Unfortunately, there's a lot of projects that are either very experimental as Luna, which I thought they were gonna crack it, by the way, algorithmic stablecoins, and they didn't. So it's not foolproof, these things. It's not that easy to know. And I've been in the industry for 10 years. So, yeah, I think it's just being transparent with customers and allowing them to make their own decisions. And we do as many things to protect customers. Like, for example, your Bitcoin's fully insured at Bitso. We do a lot of things so that you don't get hacked, et cetera, right?
Thank you. So we don't want to get between you and your drinks. It's time for us to go. Exciting. Sorry? One more question? Oh? Okay, so it's exciting times. So he was already standing up, so.
I'll be quick.
It's a good one. Pablo, nice to meet you. I'm Dave. I just wrote a book. It's called Pay Me to Take a Vacation. It's about my spiritual journey and how I traveled to over 80 countries before the age of 30. At the end of my book, I have a list of the best of all the countries I've been to, so it's pretty inclusive. It's like best seafood, best women, best beaches, best mountains, best scuba diving. I just had to ask you, what, in just taking all of your personal feelings about everything you know, what is the best country for crypto and why?
I don't know if that's going to be a short answer.
It could be just one word.
That is a great question. That is a really great question. And I do believe it's Argentina. And yes.
Argentina.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think Latin America is the best place. Like that's our thesis, right? This is the best place for crypto to really, like the use cases to really make happen. But what happens in Argentina is just the amount of talent. It's insane. There's like out of need, out of survival, there's some financial education where people get to understand, like it's not that big of a jump, like they already don't hold Argentine pesos. Here in Mexico, most people are unbanked and they like their cash under their mattress, right? So maybe like the question is that I would say maybe it's Mexico, because you need to educate people that is not right. Like they shouldn't do that. They shouldn't keep their money in fiat. But when I think of the opportunity in Argentina to really transcend from their currency, it's incredible. And I'm in El Salvador. I'm like what's happening there is just incredible, to be honest. And I've seen it with my own eyes, and I can tell you that it's real. It's just not propaganda. But anyways, I think Argentina it's the next frontier for crypto.
Make sure to add Bitso on his name, please, because we need to promote it. So exciting times to live, to be alive. A lot of stuff happening. Exciting times to be in Latin America. Exciting times to be here today. So thank you all for being here. Thank you to the organizers. This is amazing. Let's